I thought we had everything. House in a nice neighborhood, stable income, 41K in healthcare, love, the whole 9 yards. The only thing that was missing was children. Now I find myself thankful there were no kids. A few days ago, he started doing this thing where he would not leave me alone for 1 second. Now, don't get me wrong, initially I enjoyed the extra attention. But for the first time since we'd started dating, he went into each of my favorite stores with me, tending to my needs like he was my personal assistant. I couldn't stop laughing. I asked him if it was a viral online thing people were daring each other to do for their spouses. Like, take a day for your significant others.
I just love you so much.
He'd reply, or versions of that. It was the weekend, so I didn't question it too much at first. I surrendered to it. Maybe, I thought, he'd had a near miss at work. He worked in a chemical storage facility, so a close call with injury or worse wasn't out of the question. When I pried, he told me that I was his job. Okay, I said, laughing and shaking my head. I knew he could not keep it up, so sooner or later he'd go back to those little side projects of his. Recently, he'd been carving odds and ends out of wood and playing different kinds of drums that he'd made himself. That first night of following me everywhere, he stood in the doorway of the bathroom staring as I brushed my teeth as if it was the most fascinating thing in the world to him. "What?" I said through a foam of toothpaste. He didn't reply. He tilted his head slightly, grinning in a dopey way, and his eyes were somewhat glazed over. The following morning, I woke up to him staring at me. He was on his side. I asked him how long he'd been awake like that, and he told me he was having the most wonderful dream. He hoped to never wake up. That got me worried. While he watched, I rummaged through his things. I don't know what I was looking for. Prescription meds, maybe? He studied me like there was a riddle he was partly trying to solve, partly knew the answer to, and partly couldn't care less about. As long as he was by my side, that's all that really seemed to matter to him. I should be thankful for that, right? Like really, really thankful. I wanted to be. He didn't go into work that Monday, and because I work from home, he was there beside me constantly. Monday rolled into Tuesday, rolled into today. I sat him down at the kitchen table for a heart-to-heart. He answered each of my questions with care, denying there was anything the matter. In fact, he answered questions too well. Those little side projects of his he's been doing in his free time, they could wait. Work was uneventful. He would ask for a raise soon as planned. He'd simply taken days off to be with me. He had several sick days stacked up. But as he was talking, I noticed a jerkiness to his body that I hadn't before. His hands would gesture too often, yet the fingers weren't getting enough articulation. How long has this been happening? Was it an illness? There was a rhythm to his voice and movements alike that I hadn't noticed before, almost like he was moving to the beat of drums. Do you remember, I said shakily, my hands threatening to draw away from his, that puppet you made out of wood? I mean, you were really into puppetry at the time. You carved every piece of it. What happened? My voice choked. I recalled my suspicions, brief though they were, 2 years prior. He'd found out from the doctor and revealed to me in succinct monotone that he was sterile. His sudden preoccupation with puppetry, I thought had been a way for him to cope. I hadn't tried to unlock the study when he was in there, not even when I'd heard 2 voices coming out of it. Let him work through it, I thought. It's just a phase. I had tried to suggest that we adopt a child, and he'd taken it like a blow every time. Oh, we've had everything in our marriage, including the downs. What had caused me 2 years ago to throw away that puppet and deny I had anything to do with its disappearance? Was it because I worried that whatever he was going through might become a full-blown psychosis? Or was it because he didn't bring me into that world, that little side project of his with its own infrastructure? I had my side projects, but I always left the door open for him. That little wooden puppet with the crude workmanship, it was a closed door for me. At the time, I brought it up before I threw it away, and he acted like I was imagining things. I suppose that for him, that puppet was like the child he never had. I was dwelling on that big hiccup at the table, that down in our marriage, my husband's hands had left mine.
Do you know why drums are called membranophones?
My mind sputtered. Those drums he'd been making recently, the little odds and ends carved from wood. Could it be another?
You know, puppet shows were traditionally accompanied with music. It might be something as simple as drums. So simple you'd barely notice their beat over that of the human heart. But that's not the reason why drums are called membranophones. The reason is because membranes are stretched over an object so that music can be made when struck. I mean, the skin is another membrane, right?
I called my husband by his name, fear breaking through like the name was absolutely nothing at all.
Never confuse the puppet with the puppeteer.
His tongue clicked and clocked in his mouth as if he had a wooden spoon in there. I got up from the table and ran down the hallway.
There are rituals associated with puppetry, you know. Honey cakes, we're in the middle of one right now. The human body is another kind of puppet, right? It can also be a membranophone instrument with its skin stretched tight over bone and viscera. Because it's able to do both, the human body is a better conductor than wood, baby. I've been pounding you out a song and dancing you a jig. You won't throw me into the garbage. I'm never gonna leave your side.
And now, I'm locked inside our bedroom. It's as though something is off about my circulation. I can't shake the feeling that my husband, or whatever controls him, is inside this room with me.